Hello and welcome everybody to episode 3 of our Burch Law podcast. One of us knows what they are talking about, and the other one, my friends, is you. So we were talking last time. This wasn't actually what we were going to talk about this time, but we were talking last time about probate and probate court and all the things about it and what you get into and how it can be messy, how it can be made smoother. And then we just got to talking, and where did the time go? And we found ourselves needing to wrap up. But then what about talking about ways on how to avoid probate in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so now this is presuming you want to avoid probate. So listen to our last episode and hear all about probate in Texas. And if you're down with that and you think it sounds like tons of fun, or you hate your family, either way, then by no means don't do anything to avoid probate. And to keep things interesting, or rather to give Sara and Sam things to talk about, we might riff a little bit about other things you want to avoid besides just probate. Okay. So just as a quick recap, the probate court process is what has to happen in order when someone passes away in order to transfer assets, have someone appointed to clear up debts, get into bank accounts, pay off expenses, all of that. And even if you have a will in Texas, it still has to be approved by a probate court. Now, the bare minimum of what we recommend is to at least have a will. But Sam, you're going in and out.
Having a fun time over here.
Okay. Excellent. I thought you were like pulling a magic trick. Sam, are you with us?
You guys have been frozen for me for like a hot second.
Now she's frozen.
Are you just saying that this is how we've treated you? That you feel like we're frozen to you? Oh, no, Sam.
No.
It's okay. Try to get it worked out.
This is like the world getting back at her for earlier.
Man, come on.
Yeah, Sam's been coming a little bit hot. I think it's since the eclipse. Now, we didn't talk about the eclipse in the last episode, but we are all forever changed because we watched it together as a team on the top of the parking garage. And no, we're not going to talk about other things that have happened at the top of the parking garage, 7920 Beltline Road. But we watched it together and we've been forever changed. And the way that Sam's been forever changed, which keeps going in and out, is she's now very, very salty. And in fact, when I walked into the kitchen today and there was Jordan, one of our case managers, and these 3 knuckleheads, there's more people that work here, trust me. But anyway, and it was complete silence and everybody was on their phones. And I was like, what is going on, everybody? Quiet group. And Jordan says, oh no, we're all friends, believe me. And Sam says, are we?
But in a ha-ha way, not a mean way.
Listen, it sounded spicy and all of us were like, whoa. In the words of you, whoa.
Well,
I was hurt, Sam.
Were you? You did not act like this.
Well, how can we ever tell if she's feeling feelings?
That's
actually
true.
You know what? That would be so fun, is to get a t-shirt that says all of Sara's moods. And it's just angry, sad, happy, anxious, excited. And it's just the same face.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fun.
Who'd wear it?
I would wear it.
Sara would. I have to warn you preemptively, Sara, about wearing a shirt with your own face on it, because when I ran for Congress, one of the versions of the campaign shirts is my face saying Lorie Burch for Congress. And, you do so much campaigning, you go to so many events, like you just don't think about it. And I was at a Starbucks and I was putting creamer or something into my coffee. And on the other side was a guy sitting there, and he looked at me and he looked at my shirt. He looked at me and he said, is that you on your shirt? And it kind of hit me. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And I never wore that shirt again. True story. So anyway, Sam, if she sticks it out with us, but certainly Sara and Sam, they've put together some other things you may want to avoid besides just probate. But as I was saying, a will does have to go through a probate court process. It's made much easier, much quicker, much faster, much less expensive. And the most important part is you get to make your own decisions rather than the state of Texas making those decisions. But it's still, this day and age, it can still cost several grand for court fees, and it can take a few months before you can get started, meaning counts are frozen, things are locked down, can't sell or transfer a home, all of that good stuff. So what are some ways to avoid probate? Can you avoid probate?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
I'm glad all of you know that. But we know that, but others don't, do they? What are some ways to avoid probate? Blank stare.
Like, are we going with like
It's okay.
real way
It doesn't. Did you say a real way?
Yeah, because I did some research earlier.
Yeah, I mean, no.
And
fine.
So earlier today, I did some research and found some ways.
This is just going to happen. What
to avoid dying. Which, if you die, you have to do some sort of process, or we'll get into that. So, I just love the look on Lorie's face.
Just waiting for it to be over. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I did some research earlier, and people have tried the Fountain of Youth, Elixir of Life. Merlin was trapped in something.
Has anybody tried Resurrection? Oh, there was that one time.
Well, and also if you want to go into
Thank you, Sara.
There are those who never mind. Let's just keep going. This was about estate planning.
It was, but you're talking about Merlin and elixirs.
Listen, you said ways to avoid probate. I bring something to the table. That's what I
bring.
So
you're talking about ways to avoid dying.
Yeah, I mean, because if you...
Hence, avoiding probate. So prolonging your life, living forever.
Point A to point B. It was very linear in my brain.
I feel like Sam's got something.
Vampirism is an option.
Is it really vampirism?
Am I wrong?
Sam's
if
got
you
a
bring
point.
up Merlin, I feel like we can bring up vampires.
Listen, later Sarah's going to edit this all out, so it's fine.
Why do you always say that? I think there's good money on the fact that this absolutely will not be edited out.
It will not.
There you go. Statues. Yeah, okay. So that would work. And vampire, I mean, yes, anything real or imaginary or fictionalized are all ways that you could avoid probate. So let's say, though, that you're not going to beat it. It's going to happen. And you're in the state of Texas. You are a resident of Texas. What would be a way to
would have been more clear on the question? This we would have gone down those rabbit holes.
It's a broad brush, and later we're going to talk about ways to avoid things that we don't want to do. So, or that we think are unpleasant. I don't know. So, what are some ways that we, Burch Law, help people avoid probate?
Trust,
Sara. What do you mean?
Oh, God.
God's not going to help you now, Sara.
Tell us what a trust is.
Actually, I'd be very interested.
Yeah, I'm curious.
In fairness to our legions of fans who I'm sure are listening right now, Sara is the one person in Burch Law who really never interacts with any legal cases or clients. She is our marketing coordinator, coordinating marketing. So she hears a lot of it and she sees a lot of it. So for her to come up with anything that's remotely accurate will be great. Kudos for her. Gold stars. So let's hear it, Sara.
Well, I've described it before as a document that you put a lot of trust into, but I know that is not.
Oh, I do like that, actually. I like that, Sara. Good thing you're in the right department.
That's good.
I think that's a very marketable way to put it.
Planning meeting with us. But Sara, you have more?
No,
it's already becoming painful. So Sam, how would you describe a trust?
I would describe a trust as a document that you create, or like you use a document to create your trust. And then with that trust, you put in assets.
Okay. Cyntia, do you want to get in on this at all, or?
Do you want me to?
Do you want to?
Sure. Okay. So, trust essentially is a contract that you make, and you set yourself to be the person that allows things to be put into the trust and taken out of the trust. So, what this does is it helps have all of your assets in one place. And then later on, whenever you are no longer there, you name somebody to be your successor trustee. So once you are no longer with us and your successor trustee comes in, they are the ones who will be able to administer your assets and dispose of them in the manner in which you have set forth in your trust.
Yeah, that's what me and Sara say.
Exactly.
Totally concur.
Uh-huh.
So just to bring this on home, a lot of people this is a very common tool, estate planning tool to use. And it's often called a revocable living trust, sometimes an inter vivos trust. Go look that up, Sarah. I know you'll like it, inter vivos, but it just means living. Okay. Let me just spoil it for you. And a lot of people will call and be like, oh, I want an irrevocable trust. It's like, no, that's not typically what they're asking for. It's a revocable living trust. And all those words are very important. Revocable means that you can change it, amend it, update it all you want. Living means it exists while you are alive. So a will only kicks in when you pass away, and it only kicks in once a judge says that it's approved. Reference the previous episode to fully understand what that means. And the trust is just a type of contract document, however they want to describe it. It's all accurate, some more accurate than others, but they're all close. And so it really says the same kind of stuff a will does. So you want your property, your money, your assets to go to your kids, your spouse, your favorite niece, whatever. It can do that. If they're underage and they need to have somebody else oversee it for them, basically spells out all the same stuff that a will would say. A lot of people think when we talk about revocable living trust that they need a top hat and a monocle or major assets, and that's actually not why you would choose a living trust. Living trusts have a lot of benefits, but the primary driver is to avoid the probate process. So how does that happen? Well, if you create this trust, and my esteemed colleagues were referring to this a moment ago, you have to actively connect your assets to it. So you would deed your home to it, you'd put your bank accounts into it, your life insurance retirement would be beneficiary to it. And throughout your lifetime, you can change that. You can put things in and out of the trust. You can sell a house, buy a new house in the name of the trust, close an account, open an account. There's no separate tax ID, no separate tax return. It's really just if I want to be really high level, like Cyntia, I'd say it's a pass through entity. If I want to be more like me, Lorie Burch, it's like a nickname. Okay. So you got this nickname for this like bucket where you put your stuff. All right. And so the effect of this, just by the way the laws are defined, is that when things are in or connected to the trust, when you pass away, there's no probate. You're, in this case, trustee, not executor, but same idea. It's the person who's going to do the stuff. They can immediately step in. They don't have to go through a court process. It's immediately active. So, as an example, if you've got a bank account and it's in the name of the trust, it will stay open. It will stay active. You can gain immediate access if it's already having mortgage payments being drawn from it, that type of thing. Like that's not going to slow down or stop. The alternative is even if you have a will, the account is still in your name and you pass away, they're going to freeze that baby. Now, if you don't have a will or anything, then it's a really big mess and time and expense to get into it. And it's going to go to whoever the state of Texas defines as the people who should get it. Again, purpose of a will circumvents all of that, but it still can cause some delays. And so the living trust is just a way to immediately step in. It reduces, if not completely eliminates, any of those costs. It also is private. So for those who care about privacy or privacy, which way do you say it, Sam? Because you're from East Texas, so your accent's a little different.
I think just privacy.
Just privacy?
I've never said privacy.
Privacy? What about you,
Isn't that
Sarah?
a British thing?
I don't know. Am I British?
Privacy.
You'd be really good at fooling us this entire time.
I mean, my ancestors do hail from there. But yes, so because it's not a public record, so that's actually one of the reasons sometimes people will choose to get a living trust is for the privacy aspect of it. See, it comes naturally. for the privacy aspect of it. So it's harder to challenge because it's not a public record. There's no notices that you have to send like you do with a will. And, you know, they're really great, frankly. And so sometimes when we describe them to people, they'll say, well, why don't people do a trust versus a will? Why is that? Why do y'all think that is? Blank stares. Why would somebody choose a will plan versus a trust plan?
It's easier.
How is it easier?
So they think. On the front end, like on this part of it, just creating it, signing it, making the choices, that's easy. Whenever you have a trust, you actually have to do some legwork afterwards to make sure everything is in the name of your trust. So everything gets the nickname, as Lorie said. So typically it's the work and also could be cost.
Yeah. So did you have something you wanted to add, Sam, or are you just talking to yourself?
No, no, that's just what I was going to say.
That's what I was going to say.
Give me to it.
I see a repeat of last episode, so sorry.
Yeah. So yes, and there's really two main reasons. One, it is more upfront cost to set up a trust versus a will. However, it saves itself. Like that's where the value is, or to quote one of our attorneys here, that's where the bang for your buck is. And it's true. You are going to save a lot more money by using the trust route, even though it's a more upfront expense. But to Cynthia's point, it's also more work because with a will, you sign it and you really don't have to do anything else because you're basically saying, all right, beneficiaries and executor, you got to do all this work now to really make the trust work. And it's why sometimes we tread lightly on necessarily recommending a trust, or at least we really try to do our due diligence to make sure that you're going to follow these directions, because it's not like we can go to the bank and tell them to change your accounts. We can't request change of beneficiary forms for you initially. Like there's just things that people have to initiate themselves to really make sure that assets get connected, that gets done. And it is work, but it's not creating any work and it's not creating any additional expense. It's all stuff that's going to happen. So one of the most common things we hear from people when they're looking to get something set up is that they want things to be as simple and as straightforward and to not leave a mess, right? Like that's just whether they're young, older, single, married, throupled, whatever, we see it all. Kids, no kids, young kids, middle-aged kids, adult kids, homeowners, renters, business owners. You get the idea. No matter their walk of life or circumstance in life, that is the single most common thread that we hear. So if your goal truly is to make things as simple and as easy and as straightforward and to not leave a mess, then you may very well, at the counsel of a qualified professional law firm, want to do a revocable living trust. Yes, it will be more upfront expense. Yes, it'll be more upfront work, but that is what is going to have the ROI. What's ROI mean, Sara?
Return on investment. Woo.
I was starting to bead a little bit of sweat there. Did you know that one, Sam?
I thought it was interest, not investment. So, but I'm going to count that as a win.
Well,
intriguing. No, you're wrong. But it still works, right? Either way. Yes. So it's where you put, it's an investment. You put something in to get more out. And that's truly what would do. Now, at some point, I'm sure we'll talk about the best ways to really vet attorneys and law firms to do this kind of work for you. I'm going to tell you one of them is going to be, should hinge on this. And that is what degree of assistance and guidance will a law firm provide when it comes to that? Because I cannot tell you, especially the early days of starting this practice, when people would come in and they'd plop down a huge binder of a living trust, almost break the conference room table. And I would say, okay, well, we went to this seminar and, we plunked down $6,000 for this thing. Great. You got talked into that. And I'm flipping through it, and it's just like probably at least $3,000 of that was in the binder, cost of the binder itself, this fancy thing, right? And you start flipping through it. So is your home in the trust? No, I didn't know I had to do that. Are your bank accounts in the trust? No, they're not in the trust. There's just no advice or guidance. So it kind of tainted me early on, frankly, that it's like I can't in good conscience have people set up in a plan like this where the firm is going to get more money to set it up, but then they're not going to know what to do with it. And in fact, it's something that is a little bit unique to Burch Law. It's a lot unique, but I'm not trying to plug our firm directly, but we have the CYA plan, the cover your assets plan. This is very unique and exclusive to Burch Law, but the real purpose of it is it's a post estate plan support subscription plan. And it's yearly. We have different tiers, but the whole point of why we created this is to provide additional support for those who want it, to make sure that their beneficiaries are updated and they're kept updated year to year, that their bank accounts get put into the trust, that if we need to communicate with financial advisors or fill out forms or do any of those things, and even try to help them put together a list of usernames, passwords, where do they keep important paperwork, people to contact, that it's all those other extra things. Because again, if the goal is truly we want to make things as easy as possible and not leave a mess, then those are the things that can be done. And I feel much more comfortable, especially since probate's become so much more cumbersome, as you, I'm sure, have already heard, dear listeners, in the previous episode, that it's become so much more cumbersome that living trusts are really a great holistic way. Now, there are other ways to potentially avoid probate. It's really more, well, when I say holistic, that means a living trust you can connect any asset to it for the most part. I already said life insurance, beneficiary, bank account, name it, title it in the trust. Home, deed it into the trust or do a transfer on death deed. More about that in a second. Car, you can retitle it or do an assignment. Businesses, you can assign. Like it's a holistic thing, just like the way a will is. A will is basically whatever I've got when I die goes this way. The other benefit of a living trust, though, and let me mention this before we move on, is it also, because it's a living document, it can also help if you become disabled or incapacitated. It can help prevent the need for a court-appointed guardianship for someone to oversee things for you, because the way it's designed is that your successor trustee that you've named can step in your place and oversee those things more smoothly, and to avoid an expensive, time-consuming, and public guardianship proceeding. And at some point, Sarah, you need to make a note of this. We need to talk about a movie that was on, I think, Netflix, I Care a Lot. But I'm going to have you all watch it first. And it's all about guardianship. And of course, it's dramatized and fictionalized. But I'm telling you right now, doing this for as long as I've done it, like that stuff happens. Basically, it's this woman who has a connection with a judge, but basically they find wealthy people who either are estranged from their family or have strained relationships with their families to get moved in and be appointed as their guardian, to claim that they have failing mental faculties. And then there's a relationship kind of with the judge where the judge will kind of greenlight these things. So basically where this third party can be appointed guardian to oversee money for wealthy people. And it's a very interesting story, but that is something that we actually do for our clients. This isn't just about living trust, but we also do an appointment of guardian. So if something like that did happen, so if these were Burch Law clients and I Care a Lot, it wouldn't be able to happen, because they would have a document that says, no, mom already appointed me as her guardian, and don't even think about it. What's that actress's name who's in it? She was in that movie with Ben Affleck where she like faked her death.
Oh,
Rosemary?
Rosamund Pike.
yeah.
Rosamund.
Yeah. I think that's who stars in this.
No, it is.
But anyway.
I have it pulled up.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's good, disturbing, all of the above, which is hopefully how our podcast will be described.
Nice.
So there are other ways to avoid probate, but they're more specific to types of assets. So with a home, you could do things like a transfer on death deed, where it says, when I die, I want my home to go to my daughter. And then you record it in the county records, and that will take care of the home. There's also things in Texas called a ladybird deed. And that's just a cute little expression for what's called an enhanced life estate deed. And it's basically a good way if you've got concerns about Medicaid going forward, where it can actually help avoid Medicaid from being able to claim reimbursement from the house once you pass away. And it also avoids probate. You can put beneficiary designations on life insurance, retirement investments. You can also go to regular bank accounts and put TODs, PODs. That means pay on death, transfer on death. Funny story, not so funny. Maybe I should save this for our next one because I know we're going to talk about banks. I need to. I will tell this story again because it's worth hearing repeatedly. But we have a Facebook page for Texas probate attorneys, and I saw on there not too long ago where someone had issues with a bank saying that you can't put a beneficiary on an account; you can only put a POD. And it's like I'm trying to think of a comparison to what that's like. It's just it's one and the same. Like a POD, a payout, that's like a type of beneficiary, you know? So anyway, more about that perhaps next time. And anyway, so there are other things now. Please keep in mind, none of this is advice. It's general information. All of this really should be determined with a qualified estate planning lawyer that you are meeting with that knows your circumstances, your goals, and your wishes. Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make, for example, with what I just said, is if anybody is a minor child, like you should not be directing or naming things to go to them. That's a big, big, big mistake. But those are some potentially good ways to avoid probate depending on your circumstances. Am I leaving anything out, like legitimate things?
No,
No. Okay.
it's fairly straightforward if you do the things, if you are properly advised. That's kind of like the whole crux of this.
Absolutely. So speaking of things you want to avoid, I think probate might not be the only thing. I think Sam and Sara have a list of things that they wanted to talk about to avoid. Take it, ladies. What you got?
Do you want to go
Sam,
first
you
or
can
do you
go.
want me to? Okay. So we have a list. There's 6 things on it this time.
Okay.
We came up with this together instead of separately for once. Physical fights, because we have seen that happen. We mentioned it last episode where Morgan had to kind of break up our client and her stepsisters from fighting in the courthouse after their hearing.
You know what's interesting about that?
so-
And one of the many things that's interesting about
Mhm.
it is at some point we'll probably talk about the show Fisk, about an Australian estate planning and probate law firm, and how people probably watch this and think it's satire, and it's not. And if you remember in the first season, do you remember there was a physical fight
Yep.
in their lobby? So not so remote after all. Okay, what else?
Number 2 on our list is theft. I think that one's pretty self-explanatory.
So how can you avoid theft?
Uh,
I feel not personally, but
Well,
like I
right.
feel like I
Like,
haven't gone through
Sarah,
probate.
like
I can't really
locking
say
your
personally.
home, locking your car, maybe.
But when
oh, true.
when you're going through probate, obviously there is grief that comes with that, and that kind of just enables some people to do some kind of kooky things, and that includes maybe like taking stuff from their house that they shouldn't, and like instead of waiting for the probate process, they go in and take what they think is theirs, even if it's not.
Well, even more so if there isn't a will or anything, because they're like, well, they really wanted me to have this. Like, did they really want you to have the silver set?
I actually have some personal family stories about this, but I'm going to have to wait until all of them are no longer with us before I start sharing them, just out of respect for the not so innocent. Was number 3 Sara, or is that you,
number
Sam?
3 was Sara. No, that was
Yeah. How do I
Sara.
know? Okay.
Number 3 is student loans, or she didn't add it, but I kind of tagged on, or debt in general, because it is something with probate, depending on the circumstance, you'll have to pay out with the estate, which is always fun.
Yeah. We've actually had instances where we had to go ahead and probate a will so that a family member or brother can be appointed as executor just to handle the debts, not to pay them, but they were being so harassed by creditors and nobody would talk to them. So they kept calling them and sending them mail and this and that. And they just wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be found liable or have some a lien put on their property because they're technically a relative or heir of the person who passed away. And so they actually did. They went through probate where they were not getting a cent of money from it, but so that someone could call them and basically tell these creditors, there is nothing, there is nothing, there is nothing. But you're not saying to avoid an education when you say avoid student loans, right?
No.
No.
I'm very curious
right.
about number 4 and how you two mean it.
Yeah, I'm curious about it too.
So
What is this?
number 4 is 23andMe. I personally think who's in my lineage is none of my business, and I I feel like I don't know how this
It is
ties to
exactly
probate.
your business.
So Sam, if you
I
could
feel
help me
like
tie this to probate.
I'll
Do
try
you
to help
mean
you
like
out.
hold on. I'm not letting this go. Do you mean like who came before you or after you?
Before
Or at the
me.
same time.
Okay, before you. Okay, that's a different word. We'll talk about that off camera. Okay, Sam.
So
go.
you mean like
Oops.
23andMe or Ancestry, these programs that are out there?
I feel like it's more, we've had examples or cases where we've gone through probate, an ad litem is appointed and they find a secret child. And that, as Sarah said, that's just simply none of my business.
That's a very roundabout way to get there.
Yeah.
But if we do want to talk about any, I guess, things that you do want to avoid is if, let's say, that you are going through your life, you pass away, you had a lovely spouse, children, and then your family goes to probate, and one of your youthful indiscretions, let's put it that way, appears and says, "Hi, I would like money," or "Hi, I would like a piece of this." Then, okay, there we go.
We got there, Sarah.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Yeah,
Proud of
I
you.
will say we've had a couple people reach out by, it seems like it's something fun for the holidays to do a gift membership. And then they end up finding that they have these other relatives. And it's not that necessarily people are going to come out of the woodwork. That's obviously something that could happen. But it's very important that you're defining who the people are and who you want to play a part in your estate and who you don't. And what I will tell people is that the 23andMe's and the ancestries.com, like you can run, but you can't hide. And so I'd really encourage you to come clean on things. If you were ever let's say, sperm donor, if you gave up any children, any of those type of things, then you probably should communicate that to your family, and you definitely should communicate that to your estate planning attorney, because we may very well need to address those things and put that in there. So, what is another thing we want to avoid?
Okay, so our fifth one is want to avoid to not see your great aunt Mildred that you haven't seen in 15 years. Because, with probate, she, as we put it, might get a piece of the pie or whatever. So if you don't want to see like family members that you haven't seen in a few years, that, because when somebody passes away, they, like you say, kind of will come out of the woodwork sometimes. So another way to avoid
That is one of the most socially anxious, introverted things I've ever heard. And that's coming from me. Like, that's even too far for me. Like, you're saying to avoid having to see family members that you haven't seen in a while, you should have
more like family members that might be.
Do you want me to fix this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Go ahead,
great.
please.
So, in order to get your estate plan in place to avoid probate, so that way you don't have to make something a public record and you don't have random family who think that they are entitled to people's belongings, or they think that they should have inherited something, come out and try to fight you for it, or come out and just try to pester you for it. Because
so back to the physical fights.
Yeah, we all have that Delulu aunt somewhere.
Okay.
Well, she said,
why Mildred? I actually have Mildreds in my family.
Oops.
It was
I
just the
do.
first name that popped in my head.
It
It's just
is.
like great aunt Mildred just kind of flows,
Yeah, that's a great aunt name.
Yeah.
All right. I've also got a Gertrude. I actually think that's the legal name of who Poppy was named after. Well, one of the people that Poppy was named after, my great grandmother. I think it was Gertrude, not Mildred, but I'm pretty sure there's a Mildred on that side. Anyway. All right. And I think there's one last thing to avoid. that Sarah and Sam have come up with. What do we got?
Yes. Number 6 is having your family pay some rando lawyer thousands in fees because you did not do the steps to avoid probate. So now they're all up in your business and things will be public and it's expensive.
I have mixed feelings about this one because I feel like I'm struggling with it because why do we spend so much time trying to tell people to get an estate plan when the fact of the matter is, as a probate firm, we make so much more money when people don't have a plan?
But we actually
Fundamentally, I
care.
hope you all know the answer. There you go. Thank you.
There
Say
we
that
go.
again when I'm not
We
talking
actually
over
really
you.
do care, and we want you to have
Yes.
things done properly to where, like, it's not that process.
Yes. So if anybody's out there thinking that I can't nor will I speak for other types of attorneys or law firms. But when it comes to a law firm telling you that you should have a will, a trust, powers of attorney, and estate plan in place, and you think they're being self-serving, I'm telling you they are being the opposite of self-serving. Because if you think it's all about, if you're that cynical that you think this is all about making money, I'm telling you right now, probate attorneys make a lot more money when you don't have a plan or you try to do DIY or you try to do this stuff. So, there's different motivations that people have. Some firms are really focused on assets and wealth. And we think all that's great. I mean, in theory, we think it's great, right? Not that any of us conceptually know what any of that's like. But we really are, it really is an act of love and making sure that you've done this. And it's an act of self love, really, because this is about the story that's going to be told. This is the last chapter of the story of your life. And do you want it to be physical fights, theft, student loans, 23andMe, and having to see your great aunt or having to pay some rando lawyer, hurtful, some rando lawyer thousands of dollars?
Those
Like,
were
is
Sam's
that the
words.
final chapter? Is that your legacy? What'd you say? That
Why
was
would you
Sam's
call
word?
me out like that?
She said
I
those
thought
were
we were a
Sam's words.
team.
Why wouldn't you call her out? But
That's fair.
anyway,
That's funny.
so those are,
Yeah.
that's high level stuff of what to avoid. I believe that Cyntia has a story that she wants to share before we close
I
this
do.
episode.
If people are, again, the whole, well, it's more money, pay more up front, you just want money, well, okay. I have a good, sweet story of years ago, here in Dallas, maybe about 3 years ago, my husband's great uncle died, Uncle Charles. And he had a really fulfilled life. Like, he did so much. He worked for IBM, he did a ton of stuff. And while we were going through the process of, okay, he passed away, having family dinners, having viewing, the funeral, everything, like every now and then you would hear whispers of, oh, okay, so are y'all probating this and that? And I heard one of the cousins say, oh no, he had a trust. And now his eldest, she's the successor trustee. And so it was just like in passing, I heard that. And then when it really hit home is we, after all of the people who came in had gone and it was just mostly family members, we had one final dinner together. And we went to this little place down on Beltline. It's a little bit down the street from us. And we had dinner. It was great. People, like, close family. We hadn't seen each other in a long time. And at the end of it, we were all just kind of waiting. And we were like, okay, when's the check coming? When's the check coming? And then the eldest, who is now the successor trustee, she stopped by and we're like, hey, do you know when the checks are coming? And she looked at us and she said, Dad already took care of it. Because she was a successor
Nice.
trustee, she and the siblings
Nice.
agreed that they were just gonna cover dinner for family.
Yeah.
And that is the epitome of it all. Dad took care of it.
That's sweet.
Did you order another drink when you found that out?
No. We were done with dinner.
Bring
We
us
were
a
like,
bottle of your finest champagne. All on Uncle Charles
yeah.
and great Aunt Mildred.
Actually, no. His wife's name was well, we called her Nippy and Charles. They actually
Okay.
went to a Methodist church not too far from the office.
I belong to a Methodist church not too far from the office. I think it's a stretch to say I go there.
You attended virtually during COVID.
Maybe once.
Wasn't that 4
I
years
love
ago?
it because it's been a while, but whenever I would pop in, I would have like a lot of them want to recruit me for membership, and I'm like, no, I actually became a member about 15 years ago. I'm here in spirit, but anyway, all right, gang. Well, that wraps up this episode of One of Us Knows What They Are Talking About, and the other one is you. Join us next time where we'll talk about more fascinating things and issues both in and outside of the estate planning world. Until next time.